All right, welcome back. All right, so in the last video, we made all this code right here, this pseudocode, and now we're gonna actually turn it into real code. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So get the users to do text. So like I said, how this HTML element has some properties and methods, specifically methods associated to it, we got some other methods for another HTML element that we have, which is post text box. So post text box has specific elements that we're gonna want to access. So it's a text box. Every HTML element has this property, but it's one you'd only really use on like an input or a certain type of other like user input. So we have this input here, and the way that we access post text box's value is dot value. Whoops. What? Why is it not working? Post text box dot value. We're gonna have to look this up. It looks like I encountered a very big issue. Document dot element dot get element by ID post text. We have the element. What if we just do post add button? Maybe there's an issue with dot value. Why is it node value? What's the node value? One sec. We're gonna go live here and keep going while we act. Okay. JavaScript get element value. Get element value by name. Get element value. What is this? Okay, so input ID the ID. So ID equals element ID. Wait, what? On click do something. Value equals element dot value. Yeah, element dot value. Element dot value. Why is that so hard? Dot value. What? Huh? Maybe it's just not value. We're gonna console.log this really quick. We're gonna go ahead and just console.log this and see if this is working. So I'm gonna type in this a little bit here, and I'm gonna click F12 to open the console, and I'm gonna click add post. Okay, so it looks like we're not getting the post add button value. Oh, that's post add button. Whoops. Post text button. So there is no value for post add button. So if we type something here, post text button is not defined. Post dash text. Oh, you know what? I bet you I wrote the ID down wrong. Post dash text. All right, where is that? Post dash add, post dash text. What? Post dash text. Post dash text. Get element by ID. Is there any other post dash text in here? What? Get element by ID. Does that have to be closer? Oh, maybe I double spaced it. No? I didn't think that would matter. What the heck is going on here? I don't know why this isn't doing. So post text button is not defined. Oh, that. God dang it, man. God dang it, god dang it. This is why I type out loud. This is why I type out loud when I code. Alright, this is why I talk out loud when I code, because a lot of times you're just having stupid brain issues. I just woke up. I haven't had breakfast yet, and I needed to record this. I need to record this to stick to my schedule. No, so that's okay. I don't know why value didn't autocomplete. I literally made that much harder than I should have. All right, well, I'm gonna edit that down so that way it's not as strenuous for you. It only took a few minutes still, but that felt like forever. So that stuff that just happened, that'll happen a lot in code, especially when you're learning, but also when you get, better, and even when you become a senior developer, which I'm nowhere near, but even as you get better, that stuff's going to happen all the time. You're going to have it all the time. And specifically, it's going to get a lot harder. It's going to be like, gradually get harder with your skill level. Like more often than not, you're not going to have any issues with that. I've never had any issue like that before. I got super confused there, but I guess it just didn't autocomplete. So that's another thing. Don't always believe the IDE. Don't always believe the text editor, because sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes, if you know, you're right. I know that an element.value exists. I don't know what node value is. I've never used that. It's probably the same thing, but I don't really. I might as well look it up, actually. Let's see, node value. It looks like it's the same thing, actually. .node value. Get the node value of the first. Yeah, okay. It's probably the same thing. All right, so check if users to do text is empty. All right, so we need to do an if statement. So an if statement is very simple. It's just if, and then open parentheses. Now in here, we want to do a logic test. So here's where I haven't actually introduced you to logic just yet. There's some logic things we're going to introduce you to. So if, and going into these parentheses, we want to say, let's say, we'll build our query first. So what do we want to check? We want to check if the post text.value, we actually have to get this as a variable first, I just realized. Get the users to do text. All right, so var, we'll just say text, to be honest, equals post text box dot value. Stop doing that. There we go. Post text dot value. Now we want to do if text, and this is where we do a logic thing. So we want to think about this. All right, so we got to say if it's empty. So what we need to do is compare it to something. What are we going to compare it to? We're going to check if it's equal to this. So this is what's called an empty string. So if we had, let's say that we, this isn't fully made. Let's just do that. If we submit this, it's not console.logging. This is currently an empty string. It's going to take in the value and set text to an empty string because there's nothing here. There's nothing here. So it's going to be an empty string because, well, it's text, so it defaults to string. So we're just compared basically because it's empty right now. We just did this. We just asked if this is equal to this. So I'm going to go over the operators real quick. So this is a very basic operator. I'm just going to change that to text. These are very basic operators. This is called equals to. So when you want to set something equal to something, you just do equals, like we've seen up here. If you want to check if the value is equal to this, then you could do this. So, well, the problem with this, though, in JavaScript, and this is a JavaScript exclusive thing, but yeah, this is just as simple as is text, let's say, an empty string equal to empty string. That's as simple as that. But what this doesn't tell you, what this doesn't do, is check if it's the same type. So for example, let's say that we had text which was equal to text, and we asked if that was equal to 4. Now we're going to go ahead and console.log here. And what do you think is going to happen when if I enter 4 here and I click add post? What do you think is going to happen? Okay, we're going to do it. Yes. So what happened here was it compared 4 to 4. And you may say, well, that shouldn't be equals. That should not be equals at all. It shouldn't be comparing a string to a number. Well, what happens is, I believe the way this works is JavaScript ends up converting the number to a string. So it says, is 4 equal to, oh wait, that's a number. All right. Then it goes like this. I think that's what it is. It's either that or the other way around. But I'm pretty sure that JavaScript automatically assumes to convert to string. So I think that's what happens. I'm not saying that, like, if this was a text, like let's say it was text and it was a number, that it would then convert it to a string and text would then be a string after that. I mean, just for this check statement, it assumes it as a string, is what I'm saying. Now, if we go ahead and add the extra equal sign, like you saw there, and this is generally a JavaScript thing. I haven't used programming languages besides JavaScript. I've never used a programming language besides JavaScript that's actually done this with a triple equals. This compares the value and type. So now if we save and we do the same thing again, put 4, nothing happens because 4 of a string is not equal to 4. So this is generally the one that I would say you want to stick with, is triple equals. That makes it so you always you're always checking the type, which sometimes there might be issues like it might help you with your code if you run into a section where like you're wondering why is this acting this way. I know I'm being very vague right now, but that's because it's kind of hard to explain. The situations are generally very weird. It's like generally it prevents bugs in your code where one variable might not be of a certain type that you're expecting. So you want to make sure that you're going and comparing the same types almost all the time. All right, so that's that. So now let's actually just do text. We're gonna do some more logic. So that's just equals. That's just double equals and triple equals. So what about quadruple equals? No, there's no quadruple equals. So let's say, what's the next thing? We'll do greater than. So this is basic math. Like I said, programming is a lot of basic math, and also obviously math is a lot of logic. So comparing is a big thing. Comparing is a huge thing in this. So let's say that we had 5 is greater than 0. Is it? Yes, 5 is greater than 0. Okay. What about is 5, however, less than 4? Is it? No, it's not less than 4. Okay. So that's that. We got greater than, we got less than, we also got, greater than or equal to, we got less than or equal to. We also got another operator. I assume that you already know what less than and greater than and equal to and all that kind of stuff is. We also got another operator that's called not. This is called not. So in programming, there are a few things. There are, on the basis of a CPU and the way that the computer actually works, there are nodes, I believe. Let me look this up really quick. Computer and or XOR blah 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 blah. So there's things called logic gates. So there's and, which and we're going to show in a second. There's or, there's XOR, and there's not. So not is the one we're looking at right now, which is exclamation point. These are how the basis of computers actually deduce a lot of information is they have a lot of different gates. Basically, generally speaking, the way computers work is there's a lot of if statements. We're not looking on those. We're just looking at the top 4. These are the main ones. It's and, or, XOR, and not. You don't really need to know these. This is just how I like to explain it. So we're going to start with not. So not is basically the opposite of what you want. So let's say the input is 1. Normally it would be 1 and then nothing and then nothing. But not flips it. So let's say that we do if, let's go back to, is 5 greater than 4? Yeah, it is. So it should say yes. But let's add not to that. Actually, that doesn't work. Sorry. Whoops. That was really dumb. If 5. Does that work? I wonder. I don't think so. I don't actually know what that does. I wouldn't do that. But what we can do is we can take this entire expression and wrap it around parentheses, and then take that value and say exclamation point. And that says if 5, so take the value of this, which evaluates to true, and then take the opposite of true, which is false. So let's do it. And it ends up being false. Of course, if we remove that and we put true, yes, we get yes. All right. So that's the basis of not. The way you use it, you mostly use it with equals. I don't think you can use it with is not greater than, because that would just be less than. So that doesn't really work. Same with greater than equals to. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. So if 1 is equal to 1, yes, of course. And then do not equals, save that, and then boom, not equal. All right. So that's that. Now what we want to do is a bit more if statement checks. So let's go ahead and check out and. So and is very simple. So you see how you got no input up here? You got no output. You got one. These are trues, actually. Sorry. I should be very careful with 0 in programming means false. 1 equals true. That's how binary generally works. That's why binary is for computers. Is you just have a bunch of true and falses, basically. So false, false, you get false. False and true, you get false. False and true and false, you get false. True and true, you get true. So you only get true when both of the inputs are true. So we need to do a comparison. So how do we do an AND gate? How do we do an AND statement in JavaScript? This is the same. By the way, all these operators are generally like the exact same in every programming language. So let's go in here. So let's say if one, so we have to have true and true. Very basic statement. Add. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Very basic. All right. What about true and false? Nothing. And then false and false? Nothing. So this is and. This means that two statements have to be false or true, excuse me. So if we have another statement here like if 5 is greater than 4, 5 less than 4, and is 100 minus 100, well, that doesn't really work. Is 100 greater than or equal to 50? That's not going to evaluate to true because, well, this evaluates to true, but this one, 5, is definitely not less than 4. So it doesn't work. There's also or. So let's say that we wanted to set it as only one of them had to be true, which you'll probably use or a lot. You use double, I actually don't know what this is called. They're right above the enter key. You hold shift to use them. They're just two vertical lines. This means or. So if we launch this, it's going to be yes because while this is false, this evaluates to true. So or is or. So it's just like if only one of them has to be true. So you can see here, it's always true as long as one of them is true. Now, XOR is called exclusive OR. And this is basically a better, not a better OR, but this means that both of them can't be true, as you can see here. It's or, but it has to be an or. It has to be one or the other. It can't be both. So it's basically or without the and. That's how it basically is. You don't use this a lot. In fact, I actually don't know if XOR is actually ever used in code. I want to wonder, like JavaScript XOR. I want to see if this works. Bitwise operators. All right, these are bitwise operators. Let's not go there. Those are disgusting. I hate bitwise operators. Yeah, I've never used XOR in code. I actually don't know how you use it, but I mean, that's basically it. So let's set up our basic statement. So if text is equal to triple equals empty string, then we want to, what do we want to do? So let's take this code and put it right in there. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Whoops. I think it's how did that close? Oh, it's Control B to toggle this. Control B. Whoops. I don't know how I made. I did Control New, I guess. All right. So don't add post, break. So very simple. We just do break. Break is a function. Well, it's a method for a function. Well, not a method. It just breaks from a function. It's very simple. So when you're going through a function, if you want to break out of it, as in you don't want to repeat any of the code after this, like we don't want to add it, you just do a break. You could also do something like return if you were returning anything, but we're not returning anything, so we're just going to say break. Break's an easy way to break out of a bunch of different statements. Actually, I think it might actually even break out of this if statement. I'm not sure. Hopefully it'll break out. Hopefully it'll break out. We'll see. If it doesn't, I can change it. So create a post with all data. All right, so what I meant by this is very vague, actually. This is very bad. We want to create an actual post object. So we want to say var post equals and create an object like we had up here. This is our very basic schema that we created earlier. So we want to set an ID. So we want to set an ID equal to, how are we going to get this ID? So the ID needs to be something that is always going up, always staying dynamic. We don't want repeating IDs. So the one thing that I thought of is like, could you use an ID like based on the array, like at the position of an array? Well, we can't do that because if we remove items later, then it's going to assume that one ID is going to be, IDs are going to be moved around, constantly changed. We want a consistent ID with the actual object. We want an ID stored inside the object itself. So we need to create a new ID. So what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to do just, for right now, we're going to change this later, var ID, or we're just going to say cur ID, and this means current ID equals 0. So that means that the first ID is going to be 0. Well, that's what it's starting at. Then what we're going to do is we're going to increment that before we use it. So we're going to say cur ID plus plus. So what that's going to do is that it's going to automatically do a new ID. It's going to go up once every time we run this code. So basically once for every new post. And we just say cur ID. So that's using the current ID. So this is going to be 1 when we add our first post. Then we want to do, after that, we want to do the title. So title is easy. It's just text. Actually, that's not right. We actually don't need a title because we're going to build the title in HTML. So we don't actually need a title. That was wrong. We only need this. We need body, which is, of course, that's the text. And then we need created at. And just like we did up there, we're just going to do a simple new date. This just creates, as I said before, a new date at the specific time the post is added. It's just a timestamp, basically, that we can access later like that. All right, so that's that. Then we want it, so now we have this post. We haven't done anything with it. It's just exclusive to this function, as in it's not accessible anywhere else. So if we were to run this function, I don't even think that we'd actually be able to access post. Yeah, see, there's no post is not defined. Well, we actually didn't do anything with it yet. Wait, what? Illegal break statement. Yeah, that's not doable. My bad. I actually don't. Let's see. Oh, we just return, actually. Just return. That's what it is. Sorry, return. It was return. So if we console.log post, there is no post. Even though we added a post, there is no post at all. Because, well, yeah. Okay. Because it's in the scope of this. All right, add it to the post array. So now we're going to get into arrays really quickly. Wow, this video is going on pretty long. Sorry, there's just so much to talk about. I'm trying to explain it as best I can. So add it to the post arrays. So now we're going to talk about push methods to put things into arrays. So there's a few ways to do this. First, what we could do very simply is we could say posts at position. So we just say we get the array, and then we can access a specific position of the array. So we can say position this. This should actually not be, oh, that's fine, never mind. We can access a specific position. So if we want to access the first post, which would be 0, we go index of 0. So every array goes from 0 and above. It doesn't start at 1. It doesn't start at 1. It starts at 0. There's the 0 index. Generally, that's a consistent thing in programming, is starting counting from 0, because 0 is the first symbol. Because 0 is the first index number. And now we can treat it as if this was post. So rather than post 0, this can be just post. So that's how we want to treat it. So then we could do stuff like dot, and if this thing had methods, which it does, we can do dot ID. You can see that we can access the ID. So if we did that, actually, if we did console.log posts at position 0 dot ID, and we console log that, we get 1, just like we got up here. If we did the body, we're going to get test post. Test post. And actually our return statement is now working. As you can see, it's not running. So test post, that's basically it. All right, now what we can do is we could say posts at cur ID could be equal to post. I believe we can actually do this. So let's go ahead and try that really quickly. So we're going to add our posts. Looks like it added. Obviously, it's not adding it to the UI yet, but if we do posts, now you can see in here, ID with 1, DASA is our thing, July 19th, 2018, created. That's our post. So we added it, but this isn't a great way to do it because you're adding it to the current ID position, and if you remove posts, your ID, eventually when you start deleting posts, your posts array, your ID is going to be, your ID number is going to be higher than your actual, like, the count of posts in your array, which is just, it's just not a great practice. So the way that we're going to do this, I don't know why I closed that. The way that we're going to do this is we're going to use posts, no fancy stuff. We're going to take posts and use some of the methods that it has. So it has a few methods. For example, one like .push. You're going to use this a lot. This is a function. And all we got to do is say post. Boom. Now it's just going to push the post there. So we could just add a post and then console.log posts. And boom, same thing. A couple more ways to do this. So there's about 4 ways to add data to an array. So push is very simple. It adds it to the very back of the array. You add it to the very back of an array. Now, how do we add something to the front of an array? So later, we're going to try and find a way to hopefully add posts in order, and they'll be at the top. So they'll be in descending order. So the newest one's at the top and the oldest one's at the bottom. Like, that's how most things should be. So we're going to try to do that. And the way you'd add it to the array, the way that you would add it to an array from the front is very confusing. It's just unshift. I mean, that's confusing as in it's really weird. Why would it be unshift? You'd think it would be something else. But unshift is how you add something to the front of an array. Now, there's also ways to remove things from arrays. So the very basis of that is, well, that doesn't take, you're not deleting something, so you don't need to add in any data to it. It's shift is how you remove from the front of the array. That's how you remove something from the front of an array. So if we run this and we do that and we console.log posts, there's nothing because we didn't add anything, of course, and we removed this was at the front. This was the only thing there. And then the last one is how to remove from the back of an array, from the end. It's .pop. So those are the basis. Most of the time you're going to be using push or unshift. It's like 80% push, probably like 10% unshift, and then the rest I almost never use shift and pop, almost never. And then we just do post. There we go. So that's that. So now we added it to that, and then add it to the post UI. So this is where we're gonna have to make another function in the next video. So I know we didn't actually get to completely finish this up, but that's because we still got tons of stuff to do. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for getting this far. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back. I really appreciate you following through with this series and actually getting out there and learning JavaScript. I know it's a really slow course, but it's because we really need to explain things and make sure that you have a good understanding before we go in and start diving in and trying to just hammer all this new knowledge. And I feel like we're actually going really fast paced. And yeah. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.